Hello viewers, and it is my pleasure to once again welcome you for another episode of the Stakeholder Outreach Initiative by P3 World Council. Our expedition across the world continues in regards to understanding the pulse of the global markets, in regards to how it has impacted, how the ministries, how the institutions, and how the ecosystems are responding to this unprecedented change. Today, I am in Middle East, and the country that I am in today dates back to the times of the pharaohs, a place where millennia-old monuments sit along the fertile Nile River Valley, including Giza's colossal pyramids and the Great Sphinx. I'm sure you must have guessed the country I am in today. I am in Egypt. Egypt has one of the longest histories of any country, tracing its heritage along the Nile Delta back to the 6th and the 4th millennia BC. Considered a cradle of civilization, ancient Egypt saw some of the earliest developments of writing, agriculture, urbanization, organized religion, and central government. Egypt is considered to be a regional power in North Africa and the Middle East. And ladies and gentlemen, my guest today is Engineer Atter Hannoura, who is the director of the PPP Central Unit with the Ministry of Finance with the Egyptian government. Thank you, Engineer Atter, and welcome to the Stakeholder Outreach Initiative by P3 World Council.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Before I begin for my conversation, let me first introduce you to Engineer Atter Hannoura. Engineer Atter has 34 plus years of experience in different capacities and business sectors. He is a holder of a law degree from the Cairo University, a diploma in large procurements, and a BSc in engineering from the Alexandria University in 1981. Engineer Hannoura is a PPP expert with solid procurement and contract management experience. Professional business experience is mainly gained due to working at multinational organizations since 1997, 10 years with the USAID and the World Bank, and as a management information system and procurement expert. Since Feb 2007, Engineer Atter Hannoura has joined the Ministry of Finance Egypt to participate in establishing the PPP Central Unit. Engineer Hannoura was appointed by the Ministry of Finance to be the director of the PPP Central Unit. His work included but not limited to being the director of the Central Department for PPP projects, tendering affairs, and contract management. Engineer Hannoura was also responsible for implementing PPP initiatives on a national basis and drafting the PPP legal framework in Egypt since May 2011. We have a very experienced guest today, ladies and gentlemen, and I would certainly enjoy discussing, especially from a context of Egypt, a country, as I mentioned, as is known as for its cradle of civilization and governance since ancient days. Engineer Atter, to begin with, my question to you, the first question is, in regards to the COVID-19 pandemic that has struck the world in an unprecedented way, how has been the impact of this pandemic on Egypt, especially on certain business sectors, and you can comment as well on the PPP projects?
Actually, the COVID-19 have struck and beaten a lot of sectors and everything in our life in the recent few months. Definitely the PPPs as one of the mega projects and the infrastructure projects have been affected in different aspects. We can here categorize the phases or the different categories of the PPP projects and accordingly discuss the impact or the effect of the COVID-19 on these different categories. We've got running projects under operation, and we've got projects that under construction, and projects under tendering, and projects under preparation. Definitely the unaffected is the projects under preparation because you're taking this in consideration. And the projects under tendering, we've extended the deadlines so people can take in consideration their in their considerations the circumstances of the COVID-19. Okay. The impact of the COVID-19 affected the projects under constructions and projects under operation. We reviewed the contracts and the agreements, and to discuss or to see that how this impact of the pandemic is affecting the implementation of the contracts. And does the insurance cover such issues or not? Is this under force majeure, or does not fall under the force majeure from the legal point of view? A lot of questions have been set, and we're reviewing all the contracts again to see how our contracts are flexible enough to deal with such projects without affecting the projects, without affecting the service provider, without giving the service provider opportunity to gain more money on this. Okay, so we're trying to play it fair. Actually, we found that the impact on this projects is very much sectorial. Some of the sectors have been definitely affected, and we are weaving some of the responsibilities on the private sector on this project. Like sectors in the tourism or transportation, like flights and stuff like this. Definitely the demand have been less. And dry ports where the project's structure as the service provider will assume the demand risk. Definitely the international business has slowed down, and accordingly the number of containers that he should receive have been reduced, and accordingly his the equilibrium of the contract have been affected, and his financial flows have been affected. Then we here say that these are the projects that are really affected, and other projects actually there is, let me say, no effect, or the effect of the COVID-19 is very minimal, like the projects that are directly dealing with our daily life internally, like water desalination projects, wastewater treatment plant, roads. I mean, this kind of projects, people are there, people are moving, they will not stop using the water, they will not stop using the sanitation system. I mean, so this kind of projects are not affected. The only effect on this project was the security measures and the dealing with the pandemic measures, like the masks and the cleansing, all that things. It increased a little bit of their expenses, but it was not that significant, so it didn't worth revising the contract, because actually in our contracts we say that if any of the force majeure or any of these unexpected actions take place, if the impact is more than X%, sometimes it's 2%, sometimes it's 4%, okay? If it exceeds this percentage, then let's sit and go for a re-equilibrium of the contract. If it's 0.5% or 1%, then it doesn't worth all that, because during the 20 or 30 years of the project, there's a lot of ups and downs. He loses sometimes and gain sometimes extra. So it balances. But if it's exceed 1% or 2%, whatever, as per the contract, we sit in this. Actually, this didn't affect that much the equilibrium of the contract.
Okay. That's good to know. I mean, the benchmarking that you mentioned, Engineer Atter, that is something that can be a good takeaway because when we are interacting with the stakeholders globally, what you just mentioned is very, very important, that you have given a benchmark. And if the projects are affected to a certain degree, certainly, I mean, there definitely calls for a cause to just sit across a table and discuss about the entire impact that has been on a particular project. And yes, what you mentioned is correct. With regards to certain sectors that are not affected, which are of heavy demand, like the water desalination and the road projects, which are there. But how has Egypt did? I mean, has there been any kind of a lockdown, Engineer Akhtar, in Egypt? Because what we are seeing is in many parts of the world, because of the series of lockdowns that was imposed, there was a labor crisis, which many countries faced. So was there a similar kind? I mean, did you face, did the projects face these kinds of crisis in Egypt?
In Egypt, we had few months of a lockdown. It was not 100% lockdown like some countries or some states in the US or whatever. It was a lockdown of reduced. I mean, the lockdown actually was in the schools and universities.
Okay.
That was completely locked down for about few months.
Okay.
However, but in the government, in the business sector, there was no lockdown except in reducing on a scheduled basis, reducing the number of people coming to the office. So 50% is coming and other working from home, and they are shifting and all that things. So it's a scheduled, but it's not a lockdown, sorry. And the business was not affected.
Okay.
In other companies, I can see the people already taking all the security measures, but they are attending and working, and so there was a lot of delays actually, a lot of delays in the business due to, especially in the beginning, because a lockdown in the beginning, people don't know how to deal with things. The major affected sectors were the schools, the cafes and shops and restaurants and all the hotels. These sectors were directly 100% affected. So
all the majorly, I mean, what we are seeing is the service sectors I mean, it's like a blanket across every country in the world. Tourism and service sectors are very heavily affected, like the restaurants and any other tourism industry, hotels and everybody. So yes, I mean, they are very directly affected. But glad to know, because what you are saying me that yes, Egypt has seen a partial lockdown and a full lockdown that many countries saw. Because in India as well, when we saw, I mean, the country has seen a sort of full lockdown we saw for like 2 to 3 months, and that paralyzed a lot of sectors in the economy. And we saw a lot of labor migration. So mostly the projects, the capital projects that were there, they got affected. Since labor had moved out, and there was restriction on transportation as well. I mean, travel was banned within the country. So that created a kind of a crisis. But since you mentioned that, yes, in Egypt, it has been a selective impact on certain sectors. Engineer Atta, what I want to understand from you is, when it comes to PPP projects, when I was reading out about your introduction, you have seen the Egyptian market evolve, and you have seen it mature as well when it comes to PPPs. And considering the regional dynamics and the overall things of the ecosystem, how would you comment as to how has PPPs evolved in Egypt? Can you please, just run us down through the story of PPPs in Egypt?
The story of the PP in Egypt started 2006.
Okay.
And they started thinking of the PPs and how the PPs would start in Egypt, and what's the institutional framework, and do we have to have a special PP law or some amendments in other laws can work. So actually we spent the first 2 years doing nothing except studying and studying, learning and learning. We knocked every door, especially in the countries that have a good experience in PPs, like India, UK, South Africa, okay, and some other we because the difference in the environment and the business environment and the local legal framework from one country to another, and the behavior of people, and the business environment, and the business and doing business in these countries. So you cannot. I mean, this is a golden rule in the PPs. There is no cut and paste in PPs, in everything. No cut and paste. Cut and paste definitely equals failure, 100%. Because there's a lot of a lot of variables that you have to take care in each. I mean, from one project to another project in the same sector, you cannot have it 100% cut and paste.
That's true.
So we have to understand, to absorb the concept and the philosophy of the PP, and then start working on this. This is one of the mistakes that we've done. The first project that we've worked on in 2008 was schools. And we were tendering 300 schools.
Okay.
Very ambitious and ignorant enough. Actually, we worked on this project 2008 and 2009. And we've done every which way to let this project fly. And after a period of time, we gained a lot of experience, okay? And we discovered that this project should be terminated immediately because we've done all the mistakes that could be done in any project.
Okay.
But let me tell you that this project, we learned and we gained experience from this project for over 3 years of working on this project that was terminated by the end of the day. We learned from this project what we didn't learn from the project that have been successful, and we received awards on. This was what's the problem with this project? If we talk about some of the experiences. Number one, we didn't do the actual full feasibility study of the project. We didn't study the market well. We thought that the project would attract everyone in the world. And we had international project by this way. I mean, international companies, some of the UK and other from different. Number three, starting with this social sector project as a start is totally wrong. You have to start with one of the simple, straightforward projects like water, power, transportation, stuff like this.
Correct.
Social sector, like the education and health, leave it apart. This is not your piece of cake, especially in the first 4 or 5 years. It requires a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, and very much qualified, highly qualified advisors.
Correct.
And you have to have a good experience to manage these advisors.
Correct.
Especially, so you have to build your capacity in projects that does not require that kind of sophistication, let me say, and then go for this for a social sector. We started with schools.
Social.
Okay, and this is one mistake. The other mistake that we didn't start the full-fledged feasibility study, and we kept, as we are tendering the project, we get feedback from and questions from the qualified bidders. I said, come on, this was something that we didn't take in consideration. Let's revisit. And we kept on revisiting the studies, okay? And then we found that the structure is not the right structure by the end of the day. Okay. And let me tell you that some of the advisors tell us that we are working wrong and we are very ambitious and aggressive. Come on, we'll do it. The third problem is that we responded quickly to the political pressure. The minister, the prime minister, I want this project now, quickly, let's cut the ribbons. We need to announce, we need the PPPs and the schools. And so we start tendering the project with a preliminary feasibility study, okay, technically and financially. So, and we were pushing the advisor, sorry, the service providers or the bidders to put their bids, want to select someone of them.
Okay.
Okay, and actually they start saying, excuse me, if you didn't give me the right time, I'll leave. And they start going apart. So we have to extend lack of experience, lack of knowledge, some mistakes. And actually we stopped that, and we've done 3 projects after that, and we received international awards on that project. But let me tell you what, this kind of success that we have was due to the lessons learned and the experience we learned it the hard way in the project that we were insisting to make it fly, and the structure of the project is not right by the first place. Let me tell you about something that I want to mention in the COVID-19, but was the affected sectors in the PP.
Okay.
As I mentioned, the main affected sectors are the freight transportation, like in the seaports and ports, airports. Okay, airport project affected big time in transportation sector. The freight in dry ports or in seaports was heavily affected. Anything related to tourism, anything related to education, where the private sector is assuming the demand risk, has been affected, but not that much impact, because actually they have been paid their tuition fees. However, they gained from people are not coming into the project, into the school. In other words, they lost some of the additional services that they give to the people when they come. So it was some losses and some gains. These are the main sectors that that I believe have been highly affected: the tourism, the freight, seaports, airports, and education sectors. Yes, ready for
the example that you gave, Engineer Atter, especially when I asked you about the growth story of PPPs in Egypt. Glad to know, I mean, you began with a failure, and that failure taught a lot of things. What was the next project that you undertook? I mean, you applied these learnings into that particular project. So what was it? I mean, was it from what sector was it from?
It was the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay,
it's a greenfield wastewater treatment plant. This was a good, successful, straightforward project.
Okay.
However, we've suffered some problems in the implementation, not in the procurement, because after signing the contract, we had the revolution, 2011, January 2011 revolution, and this was another kind of risks or problem that affected directly the construction and the cost of construction. Okay, so this was something that we dealt with, and we learned from dealing with it. I mean, in each project in Egypt, we had a story. I mean, if we start talking, in each project, I've got story and got lessons learned and mistakes. In 2010, we finalized the PPP law. And actually, it was considered one of the good PPP laws, and we had an award from the World Bank as the best PPP law for the year 2010.
That's great.
We covered, it was a decision. I mean, a decision of what? Either to stop working on any project and put the law, issue the law, and then work according to the law.
Correct.
This is a direction.
Mhm.
The other direction is to, sorry, to amend the existing procurement laws that would allow us to work and put all the provisions in the contract, because the law is not doing this, and have one or two projects and gain the experience in this such project and put it in the law. Actually, I was very much pro for the second direction, because actually by that time we were not able, or let me say capable, to draft a law on PPs.
Okay.
Now I can talk about PPP laws for the next 3 years, but by that time it was, I mean, none of us and the advisors, because it's not cut and paste, the advisors were very skeptical. So it was the decision to take, amend the current laws, start working with 1 or 2 or 3 projects as much as we can.
That's correct.
And then learn from these projects and put it in the law, or amend the law as to facilitate the request or the needs of the PPs or the private sector and the banks in the law. Actually, we've done that. The first project that failed, we learned a lot, and we put it in. I mean, for the people coming after us, not to do the same mistakes, we put some restrictions in the law so they cannot do what we've done, because we were acting freely. There is no laws, there is nothing. So this was treated. And then the different projects, like the water desalination, the wastewater treatment plant, and hospitals after that.
Okay.
So we succeeded to put the law. The law was approved by the parliament, and the executive regulations of the law were issued on the 24th of January 2011, 1 day before the revolution.
Okay.
We've got 2 or 3 years, 4 years, let me say, with political instability, economical instability, because a country in the size of Egypt, with the revolutions with that size, actually it's not 1, it's 2, and in intermediate intervals between these 2, and then after the second revolution on 2013, you're still suffering economical and political instability. However, we tendered out some projects and we received bids, but with higher risk premium. We have to admit this, and we accepted that. We were paying the cost of saying that the PPPs in Egypt is still attracting service providers, even in this circumstances. After that, we actually, this period of time, we used in 2 things. Building capacity within the unit and within the other ministries. We start going around all the line ministers that we want to deal with and give them some kind of training, give them some kind of awareness, talk to them of the PP concepts. So we're doing something in the market. The second thing, we created some kind of a pipeline, and we announced a lot of tenders for advisors to do the feasibility studies. And the main target of this actually were 2. The first is to have a pipeline, so when things slows down, I mean things calm down, so we're ready to work. The second thing is I wanted to make the international market busy with us. PPs, even in this studying, they're coming in, doing the studies. This project is accepted at the PP. This project is not a PP project, to cancel it. So the market and the media are still involved with the PPP program in Egypt, even with our political and economical problems. Then we started after that picking up. We signed schools, 2 hospitals, and then the first batch of schools, again schools, but with different structure, very successful. They entered into service. The second batch we're working on, we have a seaport, some desalination project. So we've got some kind of a pipeline that we're working on. Already some of which are ordered and some of which are still under construction.
Okay, one thing very important, Engineer Atter, that you mentioned, and since you have dealt, because one important, definitely my question was going to be about the revolution and the political instability that Egypt saw. And in the midst of it, managing such complex and such challenging projects must have been really a big task, I'm sure. One thing that you mentioned in your previous conversation was that managing the high ambitions of the, of the political class. See, this is something that every country faces. So what I want to understand from you is, how have you dealt, how has Egypt dealt with this? Because this would always be there. The political establishment would always be highly ambitious with regards to ribbon cutting, as you just mentioned. And they want it. The speed at which they want it, sometimes it is, that you cannot give it at that level. It is something that you need to be realistic about. So how has Egypt managed in this?
Look, this is an everyday story, everyday story. When you, as you go, you wake up and have your breakfast and you'll have political pressure. It's everyday story and everywhere in the world, everywhere in the world. The politicians are very much in a hurry. They want things to be done yesterday because they love to cut ribbons. Okay. The PP project's nature is a long-term project.
Yes.
And the procurement procedures to reach the financial closure takes time. And if you squeeze it, okay, then you're losing the banks. The project might be not bankable, or the private sector leave you. So, this is the fact of life that you have to deal with. We've done something to diminish, or let me say, to squeeze a little bit the time of the project, of the tendering, or which is, we changed a little bit in the law. We have amendment to the law to make the, one of the main important, very important procedures of the procurement is the pre-qualification. You have to, a pre-qualification document with some technical, financial, operational, legal, financing criteria to give it to the service providers or the prospect bidders, so you can check their qualifications. Are they qualified to go into the such tender from the technical and financial and legal point of view, or they are not? And then get the shortlisted and start dealing with them.
Correct.
This takes some time. Takes actually 3 to 4 months sometimes.
Correct. Correct.
Because the service providers, when you announce on a project or push a project to the market, the first thing that these different service providers or companies wants to join into a consortium.
Correct.
And this kind of consortium or consortia, they require different companies to sit together and have a business deal, and this takes time.
Yes.
So we've changed a little bit in this by 2 things. We announced the pipeline 1 year ahead.
Okay.
We are willing within the next year, sometime next year, to tender out desalination projects with that size. Okay? So we give the business environment to develop their, or to form, sorry, their consortia, and to sign or to have a business deal together regarding this.
Okay.
The second thing that we've done in the law, we changed the pre-qualification session from a mandatory one procedure that if you want to go to the project, then a pre-qualification is the first step in this. So it's going to be an optional, okay, with the approval or the ability to have unified per sector, unified pre-qualification session. So we start in each year, we say that for the next year, we have 4 desalination projects tended to be tendered this year, okay? So we are opening for a pre-qualification for a desalination. We're opening for pre-qualification for wastewater treatment plants, for transportation. And you have this list. So when you start tendering the next one, you pull these guys. So it's much more sure. And the second thing is that in some projects, you don't need to do pre-qualification actually. So you can do it as a post-qualification. Post-qualification means that you put all the qualification criteria as a part sector in the tendering document and tell them if you don't pass this criteria, then you cannot pass, your bid will not be seen. So these are different things that give us a little bit of flexibility, shorten the period a little bit. And when the second thing that we do when politicians apply some pressure on us, I need a project on the PPs. We take the repeated projects, repeated projects. If we're succeeded in wastewater treatment plant, then we use wastewater treatment plants. Okay, because you have the knowledge, you have the experience, you have the documents. Okay, the only thing that we need to get the technical people to reassess this and put it. So you save a lot of time. You save a lot of time and give them a taste or just a glimpse that PPs, when things are ready, we can do it short. But in general, we learned after a few years, we learned to say, we learned how to say, no, sorry, sir, we cannot do it.
It's important. I mean, this is something a good learning that yes, you have to say no at times. I mean, it's just that succumbing to a pressure and compromising with the quality of the project, that is something that is certainly not advisable. It's what you mean to say.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Engineer Atter, I mean, we've come a long way from the Egyptian revolution that took place in the early part of the decade in 2011. We are in 2020 now. So when it comes to the PPP ecosystem or PPP projects in Egypt currently, what are some of the major challenges and issues that the market faces currently? If you can highlight briefly a couple of them.
You mean the challenges that are facing PPs in
currently in this particular 2020? What do you see the challenges as?
I will not talk about the COVID-19 because it's finished.
Yeah, because we spoke about it. Yeah.
But in general, we had a lot of problems. Actually, that we succeeded to go around it in our contracts, in our structures. Like at the time, 2014, 2015, 2016, we had problems with the currency.
Okay.
FX rate. The Egyptian currency have been, due to the political issues, been devaluated, business is slowing down, and lack of foreign currency, and another problem of the exchange rate. Accordingly, the risk of repatriation of the profits of the international companies was another problem, because the Central Bank of Egypt by that time didn't have the full capacity to give them the hard currency that they need on time so they can send. These were one of the major problems that we had. And actually, this was dealt with in 2017 by the flotation of the Egyptian pound and exchange and the fixing the exchange rate. And this actually solved the three problems that we have. Exchange rate now is there is no there's no parallel market. The hard currencies, dollars or euros, are available. So if you want to repatriate, it's available. Just go through the legal procedures and you'll have it. Egypt succeeded in the last few years to pay all the outstanding debts currency to the different businesses. So what happened after the flotation in the November 2016 and the impact of it 2017 actually gave it a push, because this economical, financial problems are sometimes deal breakers for some of the bidders.
Correct.
Other challenges that we have, that's a government to government issue, not to do with the private sector.
Okay.
The PPP Central Units loves to have a plan. We love to have a plan, 5 years plan, so we can see which project to be in the pipeline and what project not to be in the pipeline based on the selection criteria or the screening criteria.
That's true.
And we are not project developers. We work after the plan. So yes, the line ministers have to give us at least a 5 years plan.
Yes.
So we can sit, screen, take this as PPPs and this as not PPPs. You have to go to the Ministry of Financing or the Ministry of Planning to secure your funding. Actually, we found it very difficult for these line ministers to give us a 5 years plan and to stick to it. Things are very dynamic for them. So actually, we are solving this in the current amendment that we are putting in of the law that will be approved within the next 2 weeks from the Parliament.
Okay.
That studies should be accompanied with the project request and a 5 years plan, and this 5 years plan will be approved by the Supreme Committee, which is headed by the Prime Minister. I'm just giving them, be serious, guys. We cannot start working on a project and then we leave it and then start another project. It's time, money, and we get depressed, by the way, the PPP unit, because they are finished and they want to get it out to the market. It's like, no, we've changed this. Priorities changed. So this is something that, another thing that also we can say it will be the everyday story for a period of time. Actually, it's less now, in fact, is the people in the line ministries that we give them capacity building and they change. This is not, it's now less than before.
Okay.
But still, when the people get introduced to the PPs and start understanding the PPs, especially the line ministers, and they get to know it, and they've participated in 1 or 2 successful projects in this sector, the private sector and the advisors pick them up. So you have to build another. So this is a challenge. This is an everyday story as well. So, but what we are doing the last few years is that we are not building the capacity of people as much as we are building the capacity of a unit. So I need the knowledge within the institution, not within the head of the people. So that's we already succeeded in some line ministers and in the PP Central Unit in the Ministry of Finance, which I'm heading. If I go away, they can go up without me. Perfect. if any one of the sectors heads left, the sector will continue. Okay, definitely they will have 10% less efficiency because of the experience, but they can work, they can do it, there's no problems till we promote another one or build its capacity. So this is institutional capacity building rather than building the capacity of the people. And this is something that we learn, because this you'll not find it in textbooks. How to build the capacity of an institute. Do 1, 2, 3. There's nothing. It's you have to learn it, you have to face it, you have to put some of the experience and then work it out. And it takes some time.
That's true. That's true. No, capacity building, Engineer Atter, I mean, as I mentioned, I mean, it's one of the very, very basic and foundational aspect of any PPP unit or a PPP ecosystem. That's where we are emphasizing a lot. And this is coming repeatedly in regards to our conversations across different PPP units across the world. So be it Latin America, be it Africa, or be it Asia as well. Capacity building with regards to understanding the complexities of a PPP projects is very, very important. What are some of the steps? I mean, how are you planning on capacity building in regards to PPPs? I mean, you're conducting some courses, as you just mentioned, you're going to line ministries and you're doing some programs. So is that the one, or like, is there anything else as well you're planning for?
I can give you some of the experiences that we learned the hard way regarding the capacity building.
Okay.
Capacity building, definitely when you say capacity building, everyone will think that we have to build the capacity and train the people working on the PPP, which are number one, the members of the PPP Central Unit.
Yeah.
Number two are the members of the PPP satellite units in the line ministries.
Yes.
Okay, so these areas, or these are the people to build their capacity.
Yes.
I can tell you, not only these people to build the capacity. These are important because these are implementers.
Yes.
When they get the project and start implementing it, they start studying it, they start working it out, start structuring it. Okay, so these are the workers. So they have to be on a training level, not to jeopardize the project.
Correct.
But not only these people need to build their capacity. There are much more serious or dangerous areas of capacity building. If you didn't tackle, then you're losing.
Okay.
And we learn it the hard way. One of which is the media.
Okay.
The media misunderstand or misperceive the PPPs. Right. Some of which understand the PPPs is the back door of privatization or selling out the
government assets
of the government.
Yeah.
Something. And they start giving you a hard time, so they black mark the PP program. Because actually, sorry for the word, they are ignorant about the PPs. And actually, the slogan of public-private partnership is the most misleading slogan in the world. Because the first thing that you understand from this slogan, public-private partnership, is that the government and the private sector comes together on a joint venture,
yes,
which is completely not the case. Okay, yeah. So, and given that in some of the countries and some of the areas, the privatization is a nasty word, so they think that this is the back door of the privatization. So these guys are very important to gather them in 1 or 2 or 3 sessions, to ask them to come and to learn them what's PPs, to learn them the concept, to learn them the facility, the philosophy of the PPs. Make them always near you, because if they don't take information or news from you, they will get it from someone who doesn't know anything about PPs.
Absolutely.
Because they want to fill some papers in the news and some areas in the newspaper on the website. They want to fill it with PP. Either they get it from you, or they will get from somewhere else and cause a problem.
That's true.
So control them by, number one, building the capacity, let them understand repetitive because they take some of the things that they of their interest and drop the others. So you have to do it again and again till you understand that they're when you find them asking the right questions, then you know that you've done it successfully. And when they continue ask stupid questions about PPPs, you know that you didn't do your job right in training these people. Others, the second category that should be trained, or let me say, it's not training or capacity building, it's an awareness, are the politicians and the decision makers and the parliamentarians.
Correct.
Because the politicians and the decision makers at their capacities, they are the people that if they are not convinced with the PPs, they will not consider it as to get their projects done. So they'll always keep the PPs out. So they have to know, given that politicians does not last long in their positions, then you have to do this one way or another and concentrate on the second line of these politicians. So the minister is important, but the second line of the ministers, advisors or deputy ministers or whatever, are very important to concentrate because these guys are more stable than the ministers in many countries. So these are kind of experience because the parliamentarians have done something like it.
I agree with you. I mean, very, very important to have the parliamentarians, especially the politicians also, understand the complex nature and the dynamics involved on a PPP project. Engineer Atter, you've shared with us a lot of learnings and a lot of takeaways that, you know, many would find it very valuable. My closing question to you is in context to the entire investment outlook, because what we do is definitely as a global organization, there are stakeholders who are globally who are interested to, you know, invest in regional markets. So can you please, as your closing comment, can you please highlight on some of the key projects that are there in Egypt, you know, sector wise, or maybe, you know, just briefly mention about it as an appeal to some global stakeholders that look forward to being a part of the Egyptian PPP market?
I can tell you about the pipeline of projects that are under preparation and under tendering. We have a long project of schools, language schools.
Okay.
We want to reach 1,000 schools, and each time we're tendering something like 90 to 100 schools. We are in the second phase. We're the second tender in this 1,000 schools. And we are planning now to have every 3 to 4 months a tender, every 3 or 4 months. So we can, within the next 2 or 3 years, get or achieve the required 1,000 projects. The other projects in transportation, Ministry of Transportation and Ministry of Utilities, Housing and Utilities are two ministries responsible of, let me say, 60–70% of the infrastructure in Egypt, in the country.
Okay.
Roads, ports, bridges, transportation, railway, tubes. All this is the Ministry of Transportation.
Okay.
I mean, of the country is the Ministry of Transportation. The second is the Ministry of Housing and Utilities, and we're taking the sector of the utilities: water, desalination, and wastewater treatment plants. In these two, we have 4 wastewater treatment plants under studying. And these 4 are the first 4 of a very ambitious plan of the Ministry of Housing for the next 5 years. They want to reach almost 4 million cubic meter per day.
Okay.
What we have in Egypt now is almost 900,000.
Oh, that's a very ambitious.
Yes. So we're expanding in population. We are opening new cities and new villages in other areas rather than the valley. So the River Nile does not reach it. The other thing is that the water scarcity that we are facing, okay? So depending on the desalination, especially, we have very wide, very long shores on Egypt, Mediterranean, Red Sea. So this is the direction. Other areas inland would depend on the cities on wells. Some of the wells have got some kind of salinity, so desalination will be the name of the game. The other thing is the parallel. They have a wastewater treatment plant, and the wastewater treatment plants that they have are we can split in two categories. One of which is greenfield, and these are plants in the range of 200,000, 300,000, 500,000 cubic meter per day, and the brownfield. The brownfield is a much more difficult project, but we have some brownfield because some of these plants have been aged or tending to be aged. That's one thing. So, one renovation. The second category of the brownfield is upgrading current working plants from primary to secondary, or from secondary to tertiary treatment. So it's an upgrading. And normally the upgrading comes with an upgrading and expansion as per the available lands. So this kind of project we're studying now. The transportation.
Okay.
We have 7 in the pipeline, 7 dry ports.
Okay.
The first dry port in Egypt was done under PP, and the letter of award have been issued a few months ago, and we will be signing the contract within the next 2 weeks. This delay because of the COVID and no traveling, and most of them were. So the first was very successful. We already finished the studying of the second one in a place called 10th of Ramadan City, which is the biggest industrial city in Egypt. And this is serving, like, this is in the backyard of around 5 seaports: Port Said, Dumyat, Sokhna, Suez, and so on. So it's one of the very important. Actually, we received a lot of requests of interest from major international players. We are planning to tender it out by end of November, early December. Pre-qualification, then we'll continue the tendering in the first quarter of 21. On the pipeline of the dry ports, we've got another 2 that we will tender this Q3 of 2021. It's one in a place called Sad City, and another one is Burj Al Arab City. So we have in the very near future 3 dry ports to go. We have also one of the sections in a seaport, it's a quay wall in a seaport, and an area for liquid bulk and dry bulk.
Okay.
We are currently studying. Actually, let me say, we will start studying next month. So some information will be available to the market within the next 3 months. Expected to be tendered out mid of 2021, once we finish the studies. This is in the pipeline. In the other sector, they have BRT, and the major issues, major problem that we're tackling now in the PPPs is the railway.
Railways.
We're taking the experience from UK, and there is a restructuring for the railway in Egypt, but we are working on two specific projects on the railway, new lines taking from Alexandria port directly to an area called 602. It will be serving the dry ports as well, serving the dry ports. There's something like 170 kilometers. There's another connection to it's a we call it the bypass. It's 62 kilometers. So these are two standalone railways, and basically they will be working on the freight transportation. We have also one hospital. It's a university hospital. It's an educational hospital that in the outskirts of Cairo, and this is one of the hospitals for a university called Banha University, one of the big universities in Egypt, and it will be held in their new campus.
That's a pretty comprehensive and a pretty elaborate layout, Engineer Atter, that you have given us with regards to the scope for investments that stakeholders can have for Egyptian PPP ecosystem. Ladies and gentlemen, what I understand from this conversation is one thing which is very important. A country that has seen the Egyptian revolution, political instability, and still if it can manage to be resilient enough and to give successful outcomes for PPP projects, I'm sure after the COVID-19 pandemic, the entire outlook for PPP market or the PPP projects for Egypt would be very, very powerful and would be giving a very strong return on any investments that are made. Engineer Atter just spoke out and he just mentioned to us the varied sectors in which there are investment opportunities available in the Egyptian PPP ecosystem. We thank you, Engineer Atter, a lot for sharing your valuable views, experiences, insights with us. I'm sure our followers would find it really valuable enough because you shared a lot of failures, and that is very important for every one of us to understand and learn from each other. And that indeed matches up to our objective of cross-pollination of ideas, opportunities, and best practices across the world in different markets. Thank you so much on behalf of my team at P3 World Council and our global followers at P3 World Council. I want to thank you for sharing your time with us and insights with us. Thank you so much, Engineer Atter.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.